All right, hello today. Let's dive into our next topic, which should be bookkeeping in RPGs. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk about inventory management and designing inventory systems because, well, maybe it seems like I'm being paid by the inventory lobby of RPGs, if there's such a thing. I mean, would be nice. You might have noticed throughout the videos that I'm still tweaking lots of the settings, whether audio or video, so expect visuals and sound to change from time to time as I'm perfecting my settings. But this time around, I've done a lot of video tweaks to hopefully improve the quality of the image, as I had noticed there was a lot of noise actually. Anyways, bookkeeping. Bookkeeping in RPGs, well, there's a lot of it. I mean, in a lot of those, and especially in the traditional ones, people talk about Dungeons and Dragons, of course. Why, how could they not? And then, everybody loves Pathfinder. I mean, my goodness. Those are big, chunky ones, and they're not the only ones. They're just the popular ones, so it's easy to name them. Lots of bookkeeping. Now, the main issue in streamlining and reducing bookkeeping is what's the cost? What do you lose? And I might think that a lot of designers and also a lot of players would be reluctant to engage with such a system, or to even consider such a system that would streamline a lot of those resources or whatever is leading to this absurd amount of bookkeeping, because they would be scared of losing something. Like you would lose depth, or you would lose complexity, or lose realism, whatever the thing that they care about. The question then becomes: can we streamline all the resource tracking and the bookkeeping without losing depth and complexity and realism and, well, whatever the thing is that people care about? And straight away, again, spoiler, but the answer is yes, we can. Now, one of the avenues, one of the tools that you can use to do that, which has been proven, this is nothing new, this has been done before, so I guess I'm just here to state the obvious, but is, who would have guessed, inventory? Inventory is one of them. Now, I hope that throughout time and throughout designers, we can figure out more systems that do that, that are able to bring things together and streamline bookkeeping without losing depth. But in the meantime, I'll talk about the one that has already been explored, inventory. How can you use inventory to reduce bookkeeping in your RPG? One of the things, so let's use concrete examples. In Mausritter, when you gain a condition, you do not track your condition in a separate conditions tab, let's say, of your character sheet, but you put it in your inventory. And yes, that does mean it takes one of your precious inventory slots. But what's the benefit of that? It means you don't have to burden the player with, oh, this is how many conditions you can have, or this is, your separate conditions sheet that where you need to write down your conditions, so on and so on. And sometimes it also alleviates a lot of pressure on designers to come up with effects. Of course, it's always interesting to spice it up and have a condition do something special. But if you are a referee, a game master, and you're running things on the fly, and you need to come up with a condition, you can just give a condition that does nothing, because taking up an inventory slot is already an effect. It is already disabling to some degree. So huge benefit in that. Now, what other systems do is get rid of hit points. And then, well, you could call it whatever you want: hit points, health, life, constitution, wounds, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm talking about. And they also tie to inventory, which means there's no more, you need to track your hit points, which is also a lot of booking. Oh, so I have 132 hit points and now I take 65 damage. And then you do the math and so on and so on. Having it tied to inventory makes it so your inventory slots can be your hit points. So as you take damage, you lose inventory slots. Or, as I say, maybe an easier way to implement it is have it like conditions that simply damage becomes a wound, and a wound is a condition that takes up an inventory slot. So now you have conditions, you have hit points, you have the inventory itself, obviously, and that is all using one system. You can expand it further by having the damage be more universal. So it could be emotional damage. It could be reputational damage. And all those things you put in your inventory. And obviously, they wouldn't behave the same way. You couldn't just toss out your emotional damage or your reputational damage out of your inventory. That would defeat the purpose, but there would need to be certain clear conditions on how you would get rid of those. You can have spell slots be in your inventory, so no need to track spell slots anymore. It's like, oh, you need a separate sheet to track how many spell slots you have a day. No. Well, no. Casting a spell could give you, what do you call it? Magical drain, something like that, or stress, or something, and you would put that in your inventory. And so as you cast more spells, you would get more of this stress or this magical drain that would start filling up your inventory, and therefore the number of spells you can cast in a day or whatever is naturally limited. Now, if you put all of those things together, I would say you'd start to, be a little bit more generous with your inventory size, because things like Mausritter has only 6 slots. So, at least if I can remember so correctly, 6 would be a little bit, not a lot, if you'd have to have all of those things together. So giving a little bit more than 6, a little bit more than 10 would be advisable. Again, depending on what you have intended for your system. What other things can we put in the inventory? I mean, there's really no limit, I feel. So I hope that through this little exercise, you are able to see how we are able to streamline things, and the burden is much reduced on the player, really, and also on the game master, and also on the designer. Well, I feel like the designer, it's cutting both ways, in the sense that it starts becoming tricky. You'll have to be really conscious about how things work, right? Because let's say you were in a traditional system, you just want to have a spell slot system, you could do whatever you want, you can have its own balance. You can say you get 1,000 spell slots a day, and every time you cast, it costs 100, whatever, it's your own math, right? It's easier to balance, but if you know ahead of time it'll have to be integrated into inventory, you can't just give 1,000, you'll have to make the numbers work with the number of inventory slots and so on. So there is a little added constraint there on the design side of things, but it should be manageable. Now, next, what was I talking about? Oh yes, how it makes it easier for players. The truth is, a lot of players are not bookkeepers, and even if they are, it's not really what they're looking for when they are looking to play a RPG. They don't sit down, if that's their job, they're not sitting down to do the same thing for fun that they do for work. So by streamlining things, you're making it easier for them as well, having a better time. And the truth is, a lot of players are terrible at this. In my experience, it's hard to get players to track everything. It's a lot. It takes the fun away a little bit. So we're doing them a service by streamlining things. Now, what I would like to know from everyone in the comments is, what other systems? I have a few ideas. What other systems can we use to streamline everything, to kind of put everything into one basket? So inventory, we've seen, it's proven it works. What other common RPG system can we use? And by system, I don't mean like a big system, capital S. I mean a mechanic within a game. Inventory is a mechanic, or you call it system. Maybe hit points is another one. So what other mechanic can we use to put everything together, to streamline everything into one cohesive thing? Where the thing I forgot to mention actually in the video is how beautifully it synergizes with everything. Suddenly everything is interconnected, right? If you start burning through your spell slots, for example, it does have an effect on everything else. If you start taking damage, it does affect everything else. If you start filling up your inventory, it does affect everything else. And oftentimes the issue in more traditional RPGs is these things are so disconnected. You can burn through all of your spell slots and be like, no, I'm fine. I still have all my hit points. I still have all my hit dice. I still have everything. I'm not tired at all, even though I burned through all my spell slots. So that's another added benefit of unifying everything. All right, so let me know what your ideas are on this front, and I'll see you in the next video.